Lila loved her grandmother's old house, but the attic was strictly off limits. "Never go up there, child," her grandmother would say, her voice low and serious. "Some things are best left undisturbed." Lila, of course, was curious. What secrets hid behind that warped wooden door at the top of the stairs? What made the floorboards groan up there even when no one was around? Lila's grandmother had a way of making the ordinary seem extraordinary. Her stories were filled with whispers of the past, of forgotten magic and things unseen. Lila usually dismissed them as fairy tales. But the attic, that felt different. The attic held a presence, heavy and silent. It pressed down on Lila's imagination, daring her to explore. She tried to be good, to obey, but the attic, like a forbidden treasure chest, called to her. One night, a storm raged around the old house. Rain lashed against the windows and wind howled like a banshee in the chimney. Lila lay in bed, her heart pounding in her chest. The storm filled the house with an unsettling energy, making the shadows dance and the floorboards creak. A particularly loud clap of thunder shook the house, and Lila's curiosity finally overwhelmed her fear. What harm could there be in just one peek? She told herself it was silly to be afraid. It was just an old attic, after all. Slipping out of bed, Lila crept towards the attic door. Her hand trembled as she reached for the handle. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open, the musty scent of dust and decay washing over her. The staircase groaned under Lila's weight, each step a protest against her trespass. The air grew colder as she ascended, raising goosebumps on her arms. Cobwebs brushed against her face like ghostly fingers, and the darkness seemed to press in on her, thick and suffocating. The only light came from the sliver of moon peeking through a grimy window at the top of the stairs. The shadows it cast were long and distorted, twisting familiar shapes into menacing forms. Lila's heart pounded in her ears, but she pressed on, drawn upwards by an irresistible force. Reaching the top of the stairs, she hesitated. A wave of dizziness washed over her, a strange disorientation that made her question if she should turn back. Lila pushed open the attic door and stepped inside. The air was heavy with the smell of dust and decay, the silence broken only by the rustling of unseen creatures in the shadows. Moonlight filtered through cracks in the boarded-up windows, illuminating a chaotic landscape of forgotten treasures and discarded dreams. Trunks overflowed with moth-eaten clothes and faded photographs. A rocking horse stood frozen mid-gallop, its once bright paint now chipped and dull. Everywhere Lila looked, she saw remnants of lives lived and memories lost. In the center of the attic, shrouded in a white sheet, stood a large object. It called to Lila. Something about its shape, its stillness, drew her towards it with an almost magnetic pull. As she approached, her hand reached out as if guided by an unseen force. Lila pulled the sheet away, revealing a magnificent, ornately framed mirror. Its surface was clouded, the glass fogged with age, yet it seemed to pulse with a faint, ethereal light. A low hum emanated from it, barely audible but undeniably present. As Lila gazed at her reflection, the fog on the mirror's surface began to swirl and dissipate. She saw a flicker of movement within the glass, a fleeting shadow that vanished as quickly as it appeared. Had she imagined it? The air grew colder, sending a shiver down her spine. The humming intensified, vibrating through the floorboards and up Lila's legs. She felt drawn to the mirror, compelled to touch its cold, smooth surface. Hesitantly, she raised her hand, her fingers trembling as they neared the glass. Section 6. A shimmer in the glass. The moment her fingers touched the glass, a jolt of energy surged through Lila's body. The hum became a roar, and the mirror's surface cleared completely, revealing not her reflection, but a swirling vortex of colors and light. Lila gasped, trying to pull away, but an invisible force held her fast. From the depths of the vortex, a figure began to emerge. It was tall and skeletal, shrouded in darkness, its eyes burning like embers in the swirling chaos. Lila screamed, pure terror seizing her heart as the figure stretched out a hand towards her, its long bony fingers tipped with what looked like claws. The heat from the mirror intensified, scorching Lila's skin. She thrashed against the invisible force that bound her, desperate to escape the nightmare unfolding before her eyes. But it was too late. Section 7. Trapped. The shadowy figure lunged forward, its cold skeletal hand clamping over Lila's mouth, stifling her screams. Its touch sent waves of icy fear coursing through her veins, paralyzing her with terror. The vortex in the mirror pulsed and swirled, pulling Lila towards its depths. She struggled against the pull, digging her heels into the dusty floorboards, but it was no use. The mirror's hold on her was too strong. Her vision blurred, the attic around her fading into a dizzying swirl of shadows and light. The last thing Lila saw before the darkness consumed her was her own terrified reflection, no longer a scared girl, but a mirror image of the skeletal figure, its eyes blazing with a cold, malevolent light. Section 8. A voice in the dark. The swirling vortex spat Lila out onto a cold, hard surface. She lay there for a moment, gasping for breath, her body trembling uncontrollably. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and decay, and a deathly silence hung heavy in the air. Where was she? What had that mirror done to her? As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, Lila realized she was in a room. It was small and cramped, the walls closing in on her like a coffin. A single flickering candle cast long, dancing shadows, revealing glimpses of rusted chains, broken furniture, and what looked like bones. A cold breath tickled her ear, and a voice, raspy and weak, whispered, "Finally, you're here." Lila scrambled back, her heart pounding in her chest. She was trapped, alone in the darkness with something she couldn't see but could feel watching her, its presence suffocating her. Section 9. Not alone. Lila fumbled for the attic door handle, her hand shaking so violently she could barely grasp it. She threw her weight against the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if an unseen force held it shut, trapping her in this nightmare. Panic swelled in her chest, threatening to consume her. She stumbled back to the mirror, her only way out, now her only source of terror. The glass was no longer clouded, but crystal clear, reflecting the dimly lit attic and Lila's own terrified face. But as she stared, her breath catching in her throat, she realized she wasn't alone in the reflection. Standing behind her, its skeletal hand resting on her shoulder, its burning eyes gazing directly out at her, was the figure from the mirror, and it was smiling.